So the prudent thing to have done would have been to acknowledge that in my own recent travels down to Texas, we were delayed a number of hours because of lightning. It is the summer. And then I had a back and forth exchange with the Spinellas earlier this week, where they were marooned in Florida for 2 nights longer than they had anticipated. And so you would say, Dave, it's the middle of summer. Katrina and the youth are coming back from Memphis. You should probably have a sermon in reserve for this morning, just in case they don't make it back. But if you know me, you now know that I wrote this at 6 o'clock this morning. So here goes. If you were to place quotations from the book of Micah on a graph, count the chapters and verses out that are regularly quoted by people, there would be a flat line all the way through, and then there would be a spike at chapter 5 where the Messiah is said to have, or will be born in Bethlehem, and then it will be flat again, and then a huge spike at chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. We have this bizarre opening in chapter 6, where God in the voice of the prophet says, in a voice that sounds like an exasperated parent figure, "In what have I wearied you?" This sounds very familiar to me. You've got a nice house, you've got 3 square meals, you've got a great school and friends and no worries, and yet you still complain. In what have I wearied you? Why are you not happy? As Betsy began to introduce him a few moments ago, Micah, a prophet, lived about 2,700 years ago. He proclaims that there will be destruction for a variety of peoples in and around Jerusalem. He says that Samaria is rotten to the core because their primary worship now involves worshiping idols made from income derived from a prostitution ring. Jerusalem's prophets are rotten to the core because they provide oracles, but only for money. He says that everyone who is anyone in Jerusalem is on the take, corrupt through and through. Nobody's watching out for the regular folks, and that it's going to all end up in a very inevitable place. The conclusion is clear and obvious to anyone who's paying attention. And so Micah says, evoking the voice of God, you want to dispute this? You want to dispute this eventuality? Imagine it, envision it. You want to engage in disputation about the facts and how things are. When you really get down to brass tacks and are entirely honest, come out to a mountainous amphitheater, the prophet says. Come out and listen to the voice of God in the wilderness. Stand in front of Everest or K2 or Denali. Come on. Come and stand there. Come and stand in a meadow with a stream running through it. Come stand amidst the wildflowers with the deep blue sky overhead and the eagles soaring and the sun warming on your face. And make your claim. Say it loudly above the chirping of the marmots while God wonders aloud. So tell me again, in what have I wearied you? To drive the point home, my people, in verse 5, my people remember what Balak, king of Moab, devised and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him. And everyone in this place this morning said, oh, I remember that. Numbers chapter 22. I was just reading that the other day, actually. To make the case, God, in the voice of the prophet, could have picked an episode that seemed a little more obvious to you and me. Remember? Remember David and Goliath? Remember Joshua and Jericho, Sarah and Abraham? Nope, Balak and Balaam. The details of that episode are less important than the point it is intended to drive home. Everyone can point to a big moment, a well-known moment, and make some sort of argument for God's providence. The birth of a child, viewing a spectacular sunset, the stories that everybody knows. But the point is this, that there are thousands or millions or billions of other moments that are, if not providential, then divinely inspired. Why are you not happy? Why are you not satisfied? In what have I wearied you? It's not just that I gave you everything in the big moments, I gave you everything in the small ones as well. Everything you ever needed was always right there. Why are you not happy? In what have I wearied you? Imagine if your childhood dreams came true and you were the lead guitarist and vocalist of a rock band that sells millions of albums. You are the frontman of a loud, head-banging, touring band that plays in front of thousands every time you show up. You could tour for years without releasing a new single, and the money keeps pouring in. This is, I assume, what 99.9% of bands would love to have, aspire to, because so few ever get there. Imagine that not only are you the lead guitarist and vocalist for that band, but a music journalist releases a book entitled The 100 Greatest Metal Guitarists of All Time, and you turn the pages one by one, only to find out that it's you. You are the greatest of all time in that author's view. Imagine that. And imagine being completely and thoroughly miserable about it. In the 1980s, Dave Mustaine was the lead guitarist for a band named Metallica. He was fired by the other members of the band who were so sick of him at that time that they packed up his stuff for him, drove him to the Port Authority, and put him on a Greyhound to California. Sitting on the bus, just to give you a sense of his mindset, during that ride to California, Mustaine penned the lyrics to a song called Set the World Afire. So Mustaine would ultimately form the band Megadeth, sell millions of albums, tour globally, and have an incredibly successful career. The only problem with that Megadeth sold about 15 or 20 million albums, is that Metallica sold at least 100 million albums more. When Mustaine was playing in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people, Metallica were selling out stadia that could fit 10 or 15 times that many people. So when Mustaine picked up the book of the 100 greatest metal guitarists of all time, was he happy that he was number one? He says he didn't care. He only cared that he finished ahead of the two guitarists from Metallica. He says, every page I turned, I became more excited. I got to number 5, and it's Kirk Hammett, lead guitarist of Metallica, and I thought, thank you, God. At that point, it didn't matter which position I was in. All I thought was, I win. All I thought was, I win. I wonder if that made Dave Mustaine happy. As author Mark Madden, some of you will have read his book, says, chasing winning, chasing happiness, that's a fool's errand. If all you want is to be happy, if all you want in life is for there to be no struggle, if all we want in life is for things to be easy for us, if all we want is to be happy and live a life that's free, the problem is that chasing happiness is a good way to never be free. That's the irony, isn't it? The people who appear to be the most free are the people who have decided which problems they're going to try and solve. True liberation is the ability to be able to work on the problems that you want to work on. We can never be free if we think that we are owed something, especially happiness, by the world. We can never be free if we think the world's job is to entertain us. Jefferson's intelligence was obvious, and I'm sure that we have corrupted his meaning of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but I would much prefer life, liberty, and the pursuit of problems. The opportunity to live a life that tackles a particular problem or a set of problems and give my life to solving that problem or those problems. That doesn't mean I don't want to be happy, and it doesn't mean I don't want rest, and it doesn't mean that I don't want recreational opportunities that make me happy. As Freddie Mercury sang, I want to ride my bicycle. I want to watch the Tour de France later today. I want to... It was a good stage yesterday, wasn't it? Yes. I want to listen to music, but probably not Megadeth. But it's not the mission statement. Happiness is not the highest priority. It's not what we were made for. The more mature among us know that problems don't go away. They never do. There isn't such a thing as a stress-free life, a problem-free existence that yields happiness beyond happiness. As Sedlacek says, the fulfillment of desire is a multiplication of desires. Once you have what you want, you will never be fully satisfied. There are people in our nation who live behind massive walls and are armed to the teeth. Do we suspect that they have attained happiness? There will always be another problem to solve. Even if we ignore the problems, we've created an additional problem by pretending that the real problem doesn't exist, when in fact it never went away. A fulfilled life is one that constantly attempts to solve problems. The most fulfilled lives are those that are blessed enough to be able to choose some of the problems that their lives will be dedicated to solving. I was moved by the simple picture of our students in front of the Lorraine Motel at the National Civil Rights Museum on the bulletin cover this morning. How I wish they were here this morning to give more amplification to the lessons they learned and the things that they saw this week. I long to hear of the impact of these sights and stories on their lives. Maybe, just maybe, over the last week they heard or read a speech given to students younger than our high schoolers by Martin Luther King in 1967 when he gave some middle school students a question. What is your life's blueprint? He says, number one in your life's blueprint, this is Martin Luther King, 1967, should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, your own somebodyness. Second, in your life's blueprint, you must have a basic principle that the determination to achieve excellence is paramount, not happiness. And finally, he says, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. However young you are, he says, you have a responsibility to seek to make your nation a better nation in which to live. You have a responsibility to seek to make life better for everybody. And so you must be involved in the struggle of freedom and justice. As I would paraphrase that today, if you want to be happy, forget all about happiness. If you want to be fulfilled, tie yourself up in something much bigger than you. If you want to be free, then you must struggle. That's why we have to read verses 1 through 5 and have some context from Micah. Verses 7 and 8 are very quotable, but doing justice and loving kindness and walking humbly is no sweet, nice little line made just for a poster to stick on a wall. It is said as disaster approaches because of the way in which the least of these are being treated. May our students pursue problems more than they ever pursue happiness. And may we, as our highest value, our greatest priority, our mission statement in life, do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God as we continue to tackle the problems our lives were intended to address. May God's peace be with you.